indeed in a transformative time in media. Much like the start of the Industrial Revolution, we are in a period of 10, 20, 30, I hope not longer, into 40 years, of change in how people receive information, how they consume it, and how media is distributed and information is distributed to people. Something wonderful is happening out there, and it's happening in our lives. A major change that's going on, which I believe that I can safely say everybody in this room has felt to a large degree. Something wonderful has happened in this time period during our lives. Something unprecedented in the history of media. And in case you're wondering what that is, let me ask you, what changes have you folks seen in the last 20 to 25 years in media? Dr. Tan referred to some of the things, I believe, on it. And forgive me for actually asking an audience questions on this, but somebody shouted out, what have been the major things? What major changes have gone on? What have been the big developments in your lifetime in terms of media, the big changes? Anyone want to take a guess? The Internet, certainly, one of the questions. And by the way, there are no wrong answers on this. Anyone else? The Internet, certainly. Mobile phones. Any others? Free email. Thank you. Actually, I'm one of the developers of it, and I receive royalties on the patent. I'm glad to hear that. It's the first time somebody's actually said that to me on it. But indeed, these are the types of answers that generally, when you ask those questions, you get. Internet, mobile phones, and to a degree nowadays, maybe not free email, which everyone kind of takes for granted nowadays, except when I get the royalty check, iPads and e-paper and devices of this sort. The changes you have seen in your lifetime have been these things. But I dare to say there's something much greater there, something huge, something gargantuan, a latent change that is maybe so large that we don't really perceive it that well because it has happened over the course of our lifetime, but happens so slowly that we don't notice it. And this is what I think it is, to a degree. Oh, and by the way, another change here, I put this in a little bit to a degree, Dr. Tan mentioned this, is the change from analog to digital. We are increasingly consuming media in digital formats, mobile phone, internet, computers, as opposed to print and broadcast. More and more people are doing this. These are generally the trends. But are these superficial, or are these the major trends that are going on? Well, I think something greater has happened. I think that over the course of your life, we've seen a much larger change go on in media. We've seen the access that you personally have, go from relative scarcity to surplus, and in many cases, overload, in the course of just the last few decades. And I think that this is the greatest change in media history. Let me ask you here, because obviously I'm not from Singapore, but if you go back 20 or 30 years, how many newspapers were there here? And I know who published them, by the way. 2, 3 major newspapers? How many television channels 20, 30 years ago? 1, 2? My guess would be English and Chinese. How many magazines on the kiosk and newsstands 20, 30 years ago? 15, 20? And that was your access to media. That plus, of course, the National Library. That was what you received. And you consumed it because, to a large degree, forgive me, and I hate saying this, being from the media industry, you had no other choice. That was your access to information. But what has happened since then? And in fact, right now I'm looking at about 5 or 6 people actually check their mobile phones with information coming out. No, there's nothing wrong with that. It's an example of my point. What has happened since that? We've gone from a period of, say, 1970, I think I can safely use that year, when people's access to information, be it news, entertainment, or any type of information, was relatively scarce, to nowadays, 2010, where we have a surplus of information. We have access to information that was unprecedented in human history. Any one of you who has a mobile phone, and the figures from IDA say that 135% of you have mobile phones, have access to almost all of the world's information instantly right now.